Hi, I'm Karen Hill. Most of you know me from Humanitic United Church. I've been a member for a number of years, and I'm also the daughter of Catherine and Fraser McPhee. What you may not know about me is that I am an educator and a child and family therapist. So I've been working with children and youth who struggle with either behavioral challenges or mental health struggles for the past 25 years. And in that time, I have learned several different approaches, worked under psychologists and psychiatrists who have taught me different ways of helping children and youth. And in the last couple of years, I was introduced to an approach called the Nurtured Heart approach. And after several years of experience and using and trying different approaches, I decided that the Nurtured Heart approach is the one that I believe is the most effective and helpful for families and children who are struggling, who are intense, who have a different level of intensity in this world. So last year, I decided, right before COVID, I decided to become a trainer in the approach. And so now I offer trainings to children and families in the Nurtured Heart approach so that they can face their lives' challenges more successfully. So today I'd like to tell you a little bit about the Nurtured Heart approach in the hopes that it might be something that sheds light onto a different way of interacting and seeing the relationships in your life. So to start, the Nurtured Heart approach was created by Howard Glasser, and he was an intense individual himself. And so one of the things I love about the approach is that it was created by somebody who gets it, somebody who was an out-of-the-box child in school, somebody who struggled and was told that there was something wrong with him most of his life. And so the approach was born out of his reflections on his interactions with teachers and parents and other adults who made him feel that maybe there was something wrong with him. And so his main idea in the Nurtured Heart approach is that in order for any of us, children in particular, obviously when we're developing, but any of us to be successful in life, we have to be strong on the inside. And so he calls that inner wealth in the approach. And so the approach is entirely about building inner wealth, making the people around you see their greatness. And so the approach is built on 3 stands, which I'm going to talk about in a few minutes. But first I'll start with explaining inner wealth with sort of an analogy. So the analogy that Howard Glasser created, which I love, is that if you think of an artist who creates masterpieces, they get to decide which of their masterpieces they put into their portfolio. And a portfolio is supposed to be something that an artist showcases to the world as their absolute pride and joy, the things that they are most proud of. And the way Howard Glasser describes this, which is lovely, is that we actually are all walking around with a portfolio of experience all the time, right? So our inner wealth is like this suitcase full of life's experiences, things that people have said, experiences we have had, the way that we have been made to feel. And what we know about individuals who are struggling either with mental health or other issues is that we are generally more apt to remember the things we did wrong. And we put into the portfolio the things that we are ashamed of. And we see ourselves as somebody who is not good enough. And this is an unfortunate thing about humanity, about who we are, and in particular for individuals who are more intense, they tend to be drawn more to the things that they've done wrong. And that becomes what goes into the portfolio. And so the whole idea behind the Nurtured Heart approach is to help rewind that, undo that a little bit. We know that we can't take things out of a portfolio of experience. But what we do with the approach is we relentlessly try to reinform that individual about what they should be putting into their portfolio. And we try to change that value they hold for themselves. And so we do that through the 3 stands. So now I'm going to talk about the 3 stands. So the reason that the approach is created with the 3 stands and the word stand is involved is because the idea behind taking a stand is that when you take a stand, you're not being wishy-washy. You're being very clear and concise and resolute about what you're doing. And so stand one of the Nurtured Heart approach is all about, it's called absolutely no. And it's about, I refuse to give energy, connection, or relationship to the things that are going wrong, the things that I don't want to see more of. So with children, if there is, what children learn very easily and very naturally in life is that, generally speaking, adults around them come alive when they do something wrong. And when things are going right, we're very quiet and boring. So if you think about a group of, if you have toddlers playing, if they're playing nicely, the adults are usually very content and happy. And in our minds, we're thinking, oh, I'm so proud of them. They're doing so well. But we generally don't stop them to say, do you know how lovely you're playing right now? Do you know that you're being good friends? Do you know that you are looking after each other and you're sharing and you're being kind? And I see you doing all of those things. We generally don't do that. What we do is we watch nicely, and as soon as something goes wrong, that's when the adults have to come in. So if one child steals a toy from another, or somebody starts to cry or get upset, or somebody pushes somebody else. So kids learn very early in life that they get the most connection and attention when things are going wrong. And this isn't, the approach does not try to say that this is a, fault. There's no blame. There's nobody being blamed for this. This is just human nature. It just makes sense, right? And that's fine. Generally, for a lot of children, that's fine, because doing well comes naturally to a lot of kids. But when you're talking about people who struggle and people who have a greater intensity and don't necessarily get recognized often enough for the things that they're doing right, but get tons of recognition for what they're doing wrong, then you can start to see how problems are created. And this is where the kids that struggle in our systems and families who struggle with particular children, this is where when this is sort of pointed out to them as something that we do, it makes a lot of sense. You start to see how a kid who struggles and generally doesn't have a lot of skill or ability to do well easily in life, that when they start to get so much connection from adults for the mistakes that they make, that just becomes something that starts to feel good. And it just becomes sort of a reinforcement that they are no longer in control of. And so the idea behind the approach is we've got to stop doing that. We have to stop connecting with kids, in particular intense kids, for the things that they've done wrong. And instead, stand two, which is absolutely yes, we have to relentlessly come in with our energy and connection for everything we see the child doing correctly. And so, as per my example, we would remind ourselves in the quiet moments that it's our job as the adult to go over and talk to the child about what they're doing right. So you would take all of that blank space. So one of my favorite slides in the training of the approach is a big white slide with one purple dot in the middle. And you say to the participants in the training, what do you see? And of course, most of the time, everybody, not most of the time, all of the time, everybody sees the purple dot. And the point of the Nurtured Heart approach is that what we're missing is all the white space. And this is where the approach for me just kind of is not just about an approach we should use on children. When I think about the world around us, the news today, adults that I work with who suffer with mental health issues, I see Nurtured Heart as an approach that we really need in our adult interactions, in our workplaces, in our businesses. If everybody could recognize that we spend way more of our energy and time telling people what they've done wrong, and that we really would have better connection, better workers, better employees, better relationships, if people were constantly told what they're doing right, and that we see them doing that thing right, that everybody would do better. Everybody would feel better, and everybody would connect better. So that's that's stand one and stand two. So the Nurtured Heart approach is very much like a three-legged stool. I haven't talked about stand three yet, but the first two legs of the stool are this balance, this dance of making sure that you're giving lots of energy and connection to all of the things people are doing right. even the little things. They call it baby steps. Like, so if you do have a child that's struggling, I work in a classroom with kids who have really struggled in our system, as an example. And so when I'm using the Nurtured Heart approach, the minute the students get out of the van in the morning and come and look at me, the first recognition is, look at you here at school today. Wow, it's 8:30 in the morning, you're up, you're dressed, you're at school, you're so responsible. You know, that's a kind of noticing that we don't usually make for our students. And then they walk through the front doors of the school and they might greet somebody in the hallway, and I might quietly turn and say, wow, you really made that person's day by greeting them so respectfully. You're a respectful student. And it just carries on from there. And we're talking about students who generally their life in school has been about, oh, don't talk in the hallways. Sit down. Don't touch that. Stop that. Right? Stop blurting out. No swearing, no this, no that. So they are very, at first when I start working with students with this approach, it's a tough switch for them because they are not used to being seen for the things. They almost don't trust it. They're not used to being seen for the things they do right. And families I've worked with, some of the couples I've worked with have taken this into their workplaces, and the feedback that I've gotten and other trainers of the approach have gotten is that is a general consensus. That's not just the response that you get from children that you're using this approach with. You get that from adults. When adults start to be seen in the workplace for all the things that they're doing right, when somebody, your boss or a coworker comes up just to stop you for a moment and tell you, how great it was and how much they appreciated something that you did, it's very transformative, because I think what with this approach brings an awareness of how much we are drawn to noticing the things that are going wrong. And our news and media feeds into that, and so many things about our world today feed into that. And so I really believe that the Nurtured Heart approach is at the root of a big change that we need to make in terms of where we focus our energy and how we interact with each other. Finally, stand 3 is called absolutely clear. So we have stand 1, absolutely no energy to negativity, no energy to the things we don't want to see happening. Stand 2, absolutely yes, relentless energy to the things that we want more of, the things that are great about the people around us. And stand 3, absolutely clear. And I love absolutely clear. And when I mentioned at the beginning of this little video about how I've used so many different approaches over the years, the thing I love the most about the Nurtured Heart approach is how strict it is. It sounds, the name of the approach makes it sound so gentle and fluffy, but actually it is the strictest approach that I've ever worked with. And what's good about that is that kids who struggle need clear, concise rules. They need clarity. And this approach brings that. And so absolutely clear is your rules. It's the things that the expectations you want followed. And this approach teaches us that in any relationship, we need clear, established expectations for there to be success. So whether that's a student-teacher relationship, whether that's a couple relationship, a romantic relationship, friendship, when expectations are clear, and then people are recognized for following expectations, which is stand 2, that's where the magic happens. But you can't recognize a rule that's not established. So you can't tell somebody they're doing a good job if the job you ask them to do isn't clear. And so the Nurtured Heart approach really hones in on how, and has really shed light for me on how unclear most of the rules in our society are, and how much clarity we need to bring. And that's all about communication. And so stand 3 really helps. And stand 3, the analogy used when we're training the stand 3 is they use a sports analogy. And so they'll talk about like the game of basketball and say, a lot of intense individuals who don't do well in school or in their jobs can do very well in sport. And when you think about it, in sport, the rules of the game are crystal clear. Both the players and the officials know them without doubt. And when a rule is broken, the exact same consequence applies every single time. And the consequence is quick and easy, and the consequence is such that it propels the people to want to be back in the game. So that is what the Nurtured Heart approach is based on. It's based about creating clear rules that are enforced every single time they are broken with a very clear and quick consequence. It's not punitive. It's not energetic. It's meant to create an environment where being in the game of life, when we're talking nurtured heart, but with the analogy of sport, being in the game is where people want to be. And when you can create an environment that people want to be in, you don't need strict consequences. You don't need harsh consequences. You don't need punitive measures, because being in the game is so rich and rewarding that people want to be there. And so the reset, the consequence, it's called a reset in the nurtured heart approach, can be anything. It can be quick and it can be anything, because the true beauty of the approach is that the child wants to be back in the game. And just very quickly before I finish, I'll give an example of that. So in my classroom, when students are in the program, like I mentioned before, they are getting constant recognition for what they're doing right. So from the hallway, where they're recognized for walking quietly and responsibly, to sitting down at the table where I'm telling them how wonderful it is to have them there and noticing all of the things in the moment that they're doing. When the child is in that environment and something goes wrong, let's say they make a mistake, like they say a swear word, or they turn and say something unkind to one of their peers, I will say reset. They will know that that means to stop, and they have a choice. They can apologize. They can leave the table quickly and do something and come back. But they know that when I say the word reset, it means that they've broken a rule. And I don't need to restate the rule. I don't need to say, you just were rude to him, do you know? Because we've already, through stand 3, made the rule crystal clear that in this classroom we are kind to one another. And so all I have to say is reset. Then my job as the person using the nurtured heart approach is to spend that time, after the time that I said reset, looking for the moment the child decides to do the right thing. So as soon as I say reset, if I see that that child stops themselves and turns to the peer that they were being rude towards and says something kind, I immediately come in with my energy and connection. Look at you. You made a mistake. You fixed it right away. You apologized. You showed, I can tell by how quickly you corrected that you care. You want to be a part of this classroom community. You are responsible. And so there isn't a lot of punishment in that. It's all about being back in the game. And it's very transformative. And it's very transformative for people who are struggling with what's in that portfolio and seeing themselves as the unkind, unwell, not wanted, not belonging individual. It becomes about connection and relationship. So it's a very powerful approach. I hope this little tidbit, this little intro to the approach gives you a little bit of a sense, and feel free. I'm going to put the website at the bottom so that you can check out more. And if you're interested in trainings, there is a wonderful friend of mine here who introduced me to the approach, Carolyn McGuire, and her partner Christina, who have a business and run trainings all the time. And so you can find out more, and their link is at the bottom as well. So thank you for listening.